So you've just shot your film and you've gone to upload all of the footage, and as you're uploading, you're looking at the amount of files that you're uploading and you start to think to yourself, how the f do I edit this? Welcome to episode 8 of What's Behind the Devil's Door. It's a behind the scenes look at what it's taken to create our upcoming short film, The Devil and the Deep Blue Sea. Now, in today's episode, we are taking a seat in the editing suite as we unpack and uncover just how we put together the opening sequence to our short film, The Devil and the Deep Blue Sea. Now, if you're keen to find out more about what lies behind the Devil's Door, the best way to find out is by subscribing to this YouTube channel. By subscribing and hitting that notification bell, you'll receive the latest updates on everything to do with what's behind the Devil's Door, as well as the release of the short film, The Devil and the Deep Blue Sea, and you don't want to miss out on that. So make sure to subscribe today and hit that notification bell so you don't miss any upcoming videos. Now, with that said and done, let's get editing. Now, you're probably wondering, what is this opening scene actually all about? Whilst I can't exactly show you yet what this opening sequence is, I can definitely describe it for you. So let's set the scene. It's April 14, 1898, and the clock is about to strike midnight. The SS Titan, on its maiden voyage, has collided with an iceberg and is taking on water rapidly. Our protagonist, telegraph operator Samuel Hartley, is facing the telegraph room where he shared his time and job with fellow telegraph operator Jack Orpheus Morse. But Jack is trapped on the other side of the door, and he is screaming out for help. With the water rushing in and an axe in his hand, Sam has to make a decision, a vital decision that will change the course of their lives forever. With the water rushing in and an axe in his hand, does Sam decide to use the axe to hack through the door to save Jack, to save them both, to bring them both to salvation, and to hold on to the promise of them having a life together in the new world? Or, with the water rushing in and an axe in his hand, does Sam decide to run from it all, to run from the feelings he ever felt for Jack, to leave the man he loved to drown at the depths of the deep blue sea, to suppress all emotions in order to survive? It is so deep. It is such a deep opening sequence, but it establishes everything that you want an opening scene to establish. It sets the tone for the film. It introduces our characters and the possible narrative outcomes that could be happening. And it establishes the conflict at hand between these two characters and the world that they inhabit. But how do you even translate all of that big scene, onto the big screen? Well, that's where my focus on sound design comes in. The goal for our sound design was to create an immersive experience for our audience and to establish the perspective of the scene from Samuel Hartley's point of view. Now, when it came to finding sounds, there was one sound that I found through freesound.org that started it all, and this is the sound. It's called Titanic Collision, and I am so grateful for that sound existing. So big shout out to the artist who created that. Thank you so much, because that helped lay the foundation for our sound design. Obviously, that sound not only describes the ship colliding with the iceberg, but it also really lends itself to describing the relationship between Samuel Hartley and Jack Orpheus Morse at that point in the narrative. But of course, one sound isn't going to cut it. You need to add more layers and more depth to your sound design to build and elevate the tension of the scene. I continued my research through freesound.org and found a whole bunch of different sounds that you wouldn't expect to find in this scene. Some of these sounds included waves crashing on rocks at the shoreline, rocks falling in an avalanche. We also have sounds of iron gates opening and closing, squeaking and creaking. And we also have the sound of my metal water bottle scraping along the bench top in our kitchen. We pretty much had to use every single sound at our disposal that we had access to elevate this scene and to bring this immersive sound experience to life. And when taking those sounds into the edit suite, I was able to edit and manipulate them to be at different levels throughout the scene, and I was able to also do some surround sound experience with them. So meaning I could put one sound through one ear and put another sound through the other, and I was able to raise the levels over the course of that scene to build to an almighty crescendo towards the climax of this scene. And listening to that in the edit was just spine tingling. It really did help to elevate the tension and the drama of the scene. And of course, to establish the perspective of Samuel Hartley's point of view, I added in sound effects of a heartbeat beating faster and faster to represent the anxiety and the terror that Sam would have been feeling at that point in the narrative. There are 14 different layers to this sound design in our opening sequence, and they all blend and lend themselves extremely well to the visuals that we are now going to discuss. For the visual side of things, it was my responsibility as editor of this film to create an immersive experience to put you, the audience, in the shoes of Samuel Hartley aboard this sinking ship. And there were three things that I wanted to achieve to create this perspective. I wanted the audience to feel the terror of being on that sinking ship. I wanted the audience to feel the tension of being in that relationship with Jack Orpheus Morse. And I also wanted the audience to feel the anxiety that Sam would have been feeling with everything happening all at once for him. The ship sinking, Jack screaming out for help, and the memories that Sam has of Jack coming back to haunt him. I knew that if I ticked off those three feelings, I would be able to create a compelling character that the audience could connect with within the first minute of the film. So how do you visually translate those feelings visually onto the screen? Well, the way we achieve this is predominantly through colour and the lack thereof. Now, when it came to creating Sam's memories of Jack Orpheus Morse, we decided to colour correct these in the orthochromatic black and white film look that we have for the rest of the film predominantly. We found that this would be the best way for the audience to establish that as the past, as we commonly obviously associate black and white films with being of a bygone era. Now, when it came to establishing what was present in this scene, we decided to go with the colour red. We colour corrected this scene in red as it was the best way to establish that this was a scene of danger, terror and tension. Obviously, when we talk about the colour red, it's the universal colour for danger, anxiety, terror, and also love and romance, which is obviously feelings that are completely relevant within this opening sequence. But we also used red as a colour for another reason. We wanted to highlight the idea of the devil playing God, not physically, but spiritually. He was there having these characters on puppet strings, controlling every move and decision that they make, and using the colour red was the best way to communicate that. Now, when putting these scenes together in the edit suite, what I did was I intercut the present red corridor sequence with the orthochromatic black and white past memories of Jack Orpheus Morse. And when putting these two scenes side by side, faster and faster as the scene progresses, I was able to yet again elevate the drama and really hone in on this tension between these two characters and the world as it crumbles around them. It really did establish the tone for the film, and it also did help to definitely establish the terror of being on that sinking ship, the tension that Sam would have been feeling in this relationship with Jack Orpheus Morse, and it really did definitely establish the anxiety that Sam would have been feeling as everything was coming back to haunt him all at once. We even elevated this anxiety even further by zooming in closer on Sam's facial features, such as his eyes and mouth, to really hone in on how the human body and psyche reacts to all these internal and external pressures. Fun fact, when we were filming the memory sequence of Jack Orpheus Morse, we did make a bit of a mistake. We actually filmed that scene on a tripod, meaning it was a static shot. Now, obviously, this is meant to be from Samuel Hartley's point of view, so a handheld shot would have made a whole lot more sense. So how was I going to fix that in the edit suite? Well, thankfully, I had already recorded the same scene from Jack's point of view, and that was handheld. So what I was able to do was grab that handheld footage and group that together with the clip that we want to use of Jack Orpheus Morse. Once those two clips were grouped together, I was able to apply what we call the warp stabilizer effect. And what that does is analyzes each and every frame of movement on the first layer, which was the footage of Samuel Hartley on screen. Now, once that had rendered and analyzed the footage, I removed the footage that we had of Samuel Hartley, and what that did was enable the handheld footage that we had on that scene of Samuel Hartley to be applied to the scene that we had of Jack Orpheus Morse. So therefore, what was once a static shot was now a handheld shot. Problem solved and crisis averted. Now, the final thing I did was apply text to this scene to provide additional context for the audience to understand where we have been and where we are going. As this film is predominantly set in the 1900s, I wanted to pay homage to the iconic film reels that you would see of the time by animating the text to jitter throughout this scene. Now, this is where After Effects comes in, and this is how I was able to make the text jitter on screen. In After Effects, what I did was I typed the text that I wanted on screen first. Once I had that done, I would head over to the Layer tab and open up a new null layer. From there, I would drop down to the transform box on the timeline and alt-click the position. This would allow me to type in a formula to move the text. To create the subtle movement within the text, the expression I wrote into the null object was wiggle bracket 24,1 close bracket. This meant that the text would only move the smallest amount per second. Additionally, to really take this scene home, I added what we would typically see in these vintage film reels, which is film dust, which is dust on the celluloid film. And to create this in After Effects, what I did was I created a new solid layer called white dust, and I applied the fractal noise effect to it. I upped the contrast to 600 and lowered the brightness to 260. I also alt-clicked on the evolution time key and entered in a new expression, wiggle, open bracket, 24, 1000, close bracket. This enabled the dust to flicker and move in the background, but for me it was just a little bit too overpowering. So I lowered the opacity to 24%, and that was subtle enough just to break through the background. Once all of those effects were applied, I duplicated the layer, named it black dust, and reversed the brightness to positive 260, which was honestly just the icing on the cake, or, if you pardon the pun, just the tip of the iceberg. But it really did help to elevate this scene and everything else just that little bit more. You could say that editing a film is practically like an iceberg, because what you see on the surface is barely any of the work that goes into bringing a film to life in the edit suite. So I hope that by looking at this behind the scenes video, you've been able to gain some valuable tips and tricks that you can use when editing your next project. So that's a wrap for this episode. Thank you so much for watching, and if you've enjoyed this episode, give it a thumbs up, comment below as well what you've been enjoying so far on this journey, and yet again, don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss any upcoming videos as they come to hand. So thank you for watching. I hope you learned some valuable little lessons, and this is your captain signing out for now, but we'll see you on the next episode. And until then, this is your captain signing out. Bye.